Yeah, that's hey, people, tell me if you can hear us. This is amateur hour. I've only done 343 of these. So welcome to Blog Thursday number 343. Tom and Jason debate about virtualization and tech talk. If you're looking for some merger talk, Lawrence.video/biz. Me and Jason have been rocking out business videos over on Business Technicalities. I've made that URL short because I can't spell technicalities consistently.
Yeah,
Spelling's hard.
Yeah.
We need AI to spell better for us. If you see me looking over here, this is where the control is. We're using my main camera. That's why we're not sure. We're assuming that we're 44 seconds in and people can hear us. So type a message. Hello. Hello. Actually, we'll go all the way up to the top here. Good morning. Pushing a little early for you because I know you're in the West Coast area of the world. It's afternoon for people in the UK.
I'm sure the people in the UK like that it's earlier.
Yeah. You know, I got to say something, though. I have just a ton of French followers now. My Twitter engagement is a lot of French now. I'm just kind of like, that's kind of novel. And by the way, something we're going to be talking to is XCP-NG. They're also a French company. So is CrowdSec, and there's one other big company that we started working with that's French, that's open source. Seems like a lot of open source stuff coming out of France, which I think is cool.
It's funny that we're both in Hunter shirts.
Oh yeah, that's completely coincidence. We didn't plan.
Yeah.
Can you run your fingers through your hair? So this started as an accident. I was since I injured my arm, and I can be out of the sling because I can support it. I can't reach though to put a ponytail holder in. So I let my hair down, and then everyone's asking me questions.
You'll get PT, I presume, to improve the range of motion.
Yes. Yeah, I can do this now, and it doesn't hurt as bad. I've been doing that's actually, if you look, that's a little PT sheet of do this with your hand, do this. So yeah, I got all kinds of PT stuff I'm doing for sure. All right, first couple questions for people that actually we throw this banner up on there because I always encourage people. I've even been replying to some of the emails because I set this up as a separate email, which is the vlog Thursday at lawrencesystems.com. Because sometimes people just want to point something out or send something to me. And I know you're not one of the usual spammers because purposely this is not embedded anywhere. So the scrapers don't get it. They got to scrape it off a screen, which seems to be slightly more challenging. But
if it doesn't show up in any of the thumbnails, they'd have to go through the whole video.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, they're too lazy for that to send me stuff. But so this is a question someone just sent in. Hi, Tom. Hope you're doing well. Shoulder's doing better. Yes, it is. So they're comparing the Tailscale performance, Tailscale versus zero tier. In a number of videos, you have been using Tailscale. I was wondering what brought it down to that side of the fence, and updated thoughts on any similar systems like Nebula or NetMaker. I'd also be interested to hear cool use cases for mesh VPN overlay networks that you can talk about where you're employing them with clients. I might have a couple client videos that I can talk about with that. I will admit, I bet Jason hasn't heard of this one. This one is really cool. If you've not, they're branding and so you tap on StreamYard, throw that in here. NetMaker has really got a pretty website.
Yeah.
But what I've heard from people is it's kind of a little hit and miss, and I haven't tried it myself. It's a automated system, so you just point to the nodes and it automatically builds all the tunnels and builds a WireGuard mesh network.
Yeah, which because it's n times n minus 1 divided by 2 tunnels you end up with.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. It's open source, and you have to build your own. Well, you get to host your own, so good and bad. It's a little bit more work to set up than the other ones like Zero Tier or Tailscale, which have their own coordination server. You get to build your coordination server in a cloud, so you maintain control of the networks. I think that's a cool feature, but it's also, I don't know. I got to admit, for an open source project, that's a website. Usually don't see one that nice for something that's 100% open source. I just haven't spent a lot of time with it. A few people have told me it's kind of buggy, but I will admit the reason I went for Tailscale, a lot of it just has to do with the fact that it's built into pfSense, and there's kind of I don't know if I'm going to talk about it. I don't know if it's worthy of a whole video, but I did switch to a MacBook Air, and you like Mac, and he likes Mac. We're both, as a matter of fact, we both have the same Android phone, but we both, I fought Mac. I would have told you I hated it for a long time, but I tried it and I said, oh God, I like this.
Yeah. So for me, I ran Ubuntu. Like I've never really I've used Windows systems when I've had to, but I switched to Ubuntu, and then I honestly got tired of fighting with graphics drivers. So because of that, and because of, my needs are not that great these days, but I do need Word. I do need those apps that don't run well on Linux.
Yep.
And as a business person, it became, I got tired of messing with it. I need things to just work, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is with Ubuntu and that is I tinker too much, and then eventually it doesn't work, and then I lose productivity while I'm trying to make it work again. So I switched to Mac to try to kill all that stuff off. It turns out, pretty sure the graphics driver problems don't go away in Mac. It's a hardware problem. It's not actually a driver problem. So I still have GPU crashes and stuff like that happen. Less so on this M2 one, but it's just a good experience. I'm a FreeBSD guy. The user base, user space binaries for OS X or Mac OS are all FreeBSD forked. Julian, whatever his name is, was a big part of that when it first happened. FreeBSD core contributor got hired by Apple.
Yeah, and to kind of bring it back to the VPN side and me having a MacBook Air, which also has Tailscale support. Yeah. So I have Tailscale on my MacBook Air. I have Tailscale on my pfSense. And I also have, like, if I wanted to watch a movie when I travel, I've been using it. And I have Tailscale on my phone. You put all this together, and I think Tailscale, I'm going to do like a long-term review. I wanted to use it for everything for a while and go, damn. And I have zero problems with it.
I should do it. I still I got one of the Humble Bundle VPN deals back in the day for like lifetime access for like $200 or something. So I've been using that when I need it. But I am definitely curious, and we'll probably end up setting up Tailscale at home. But I'm Meraki here at home, so I'll just set it up behind that.
You set it behind it, but it's one of those ease of use, and we've consulted with a handful of clients on it as far as like commercial solutions. The one that there's a grocery store chain that we set them up with it, and it was really impressive. And because they had a problem where the install company put the same network at range, so they couldn't VPN. So every store was cookie cutter the same right down to the ranges. So this IT guy that inherits it goes, crap, how do I solve this? Because I need the database backed up between all these to one server. Turns out an overlay network is a perfect solution because it adds an extra adapter. So it doesn't care. And then they can use the Tailscale IP addresses to specifically bind and do the coordination between all the inventory, everything. It built an incredible network. And we've had a few other random consulting calls where we've talked to the team internally of IT. We didn't do the implementation. We just kind of explained how it worked, and they go, oh, that's it. One of them, I kind of like, they watched my video and now didn't need consulting. They almost like couldn't believe it worked that good. They're like, yeah, it's kind of neat. So,
to me, this is just the next evolution of DMVPN, right? So I'm an old Cisco guy by trade, and we were talking about DMVPN. It's just been a CCIE topic for 8 years now, right? So this isn't new. It's just made its way down to the open source world more recently.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Hold on, someone had one more question I want to lose. All joking aside, I'm a small business. Was wondering if there is an add-on to pfSense that you recommend that I have. As far as like I have my small business video set up for pfSense. I think it's from 2021. Those still apply. Load PF blocker. Be careful with Sericata, false positives. We literally got burned ourselves. We burned ourselves. All right. There's Snort actually has a little bit better of a rule set now, because if you use Snort, they have a pull down in pfSense that just automates it to like it says real aggressive, as in spend all day tracing false positives, or not so aggressive. But PF blocker is not bad. I specifically, my PF blocker, I call out like, hey, block all the Tor sites. And I can't remember, CIS Army has their list. There's a few lists, and I have a video called Blocking Threats with PF Blocker I did in late 2022 or early 2023, but the lists haven't changed. Well, the lists have been updated, but the names of the lists are the same. So those are the two things I'd recommend as far as packages for pfSense for small business.
What are your thoughts on paid, like emerging threats or some of the other paid?
I think those are good. But for small business, limited protection. Most of the time it's business email compromise and silliness. So they're cool, but
I think they're for like a small business. I think they're like $80 a year or
Yeah,
something. It's
they're
not
not
that
expensive. Yeah.
And it does, right. Emerging threats, obviously, it's a group. I think it's Talos, right? Doesn't that
Yeah.
a lot of that comes out of Talos?
Yep.
And they are on top of, and yeah, a lot of it's probably not aimed at small businesses, but it will definitely catch it if you're getting hit by an ODA that has been caught.
Yeah, and hopefully if you're a small business, you don't have any ports open, so it's just less of a concern in general.
Well, that's usually not true, but yes,
yeah,
in a perfect world,
in a perfect world, you won't have any ports open. The second question came in, and this is one of those wording things of what people said versus what they want. And the way they worded it's a little funny, but this may trigger some things in people's heads to understand the question better. Is it possible to route multiple private IPs on the same port on the public IP of pfSense? And if the pfSense doesn't support it, what option would you suggest? What you're asking for is probably more like HA proxy, where you will set up a proxy that redirects on the back end to get the front end where it needs to be. So 443 is all I have open, but depending on the matching URL, and I do have 3 tutorials on HA proxy, even including one for doing wildcards. And the third one's kind of not a tutorial. It's all the things you probably did wrong. And of course, that starts with fixing DNS, because most of the consulting we do on HA proxy is your DNS was wrong, your matching was wrong, you misspelled the URL. That's a common one, because it has to be that URL.
Host headers.
Yeah, the host headers, the SNI has to match. If you didn't do the matching, you pasted in wrong, or if you're connecting to something that has a self-signed certificate, you didn't check that box of don't validate certificate, because HA proxy by default wants to validate certificates on the inside. And of course, they're probably not valid certs. That's why you're using HA proxy.
We use, I've got good amount of HA proxy experience, but I tend to use Nginx for that. But they both work fine. That's if what you're trying to do is web, that's what you want to do. You can do so the NAT rules, the back end underlying NAT system supports a combination of source and destination IP. So you could have this source IP on this port gets this source IP on this port gets that. I'm not sure that pfSense exposes that in a way that you can actually do it in the UI. And oh man, the troubleshooting on that's impossible.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Tried Linux on a video creative, music didn't. I'm been, since it was painful 10 years ago, I switched to Linux on the desktop. That was a lot of work back then. Here in 2023, I barely ever fire up my Windows virtual machine. It just rarely happens. DaVinci Resolve is my go-to, and DaVinci Resolve is actually, if you were to talk to them, they'll push you towards either a Mac or a Linux workstation over a Windows one. They really like, and they work so well on the
really good on
the new M2s and things like that. Like, it works awesome. I'm in the process of migrating Proxmox to pure Debian 12 LXD now that it's in Bookworm repository natively. Still learning, but looks promising. Is it LXC or LXD containers you can do in Proxmox? Do you know? LXC. Yeah, I think Jay from Learn Linux TV has a video on LXD. I'm not using it, so I don't have. I like containerization, but I'm not up on the latest in terms of this question here. If any comments on it, so yeah. IPv6, man, it's the year of IPv6 for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I remember when it came out.
I know, like my hair wasn't gray when IPv6 came out.
I think the biggest adoption problem there is I still come across plenty of hardware that just doesn't support it, or if it does, it doesn't hardware switch it, right? So it's like the performance of throughput on. We'd have to look at like the Netgate firewalls. I'm curious to see how much of a performance hit it is to go to IPv6, because some of the network cards don't do TCP offload. They don't do a lot of the features that you get with IPv4.
Yeah.
So you end up giving out a lot of performance because a lot of it goes to the CPU then. So.
Yeah, it just becomes a problem. Home Assistant, Zigbee, MQTT, XCP-NG. Well, the problem with XCP-NG, and it's not a problem, it's just extra work, is if you're passing through one of these Zigbee MQTT, which I happen to have in my hand, you end up with the problem of USB pass-through, mapping it. It's not, there's documentation how to do it. I don't have a documented video, but there is documentation in their forums about it. I do like it on a Raspberry Pi. That's my preference. a Raspberry Pi works pretty well for this because it's always on, and you can use things like Wake on LAN. I have a lot of my systems, I just power all off, and then from my phone, I have it connected to Home Assistant, and it sends a Wake on LAN packet and wakes up all the systems. That's how I turn everything on that's here. But I really like doing it on the Zigbee and Z-Wave. And this little device, it has Zigbee and Z-Wave on one USB device. It's like $30. And I've already been replacing light switches and everything in my house on this. I have an upcoming video on Home Assistant, but if you go to kit.co/Lawrence Systems, and it's linked in the description, I have an entire parts list for all my Home Assistant stuff. So if you want to copy my build, even though I haven't done the video, I did do the part where all the things I know that work with Home Assistant, because I think that's the hardest part. Home Assistant, stupid easy to load. The next 25 hours of labor is all, does it work with this switch? Does it work with that switch? How do I get this configured? It's not the loading
receiver, and it works, but it's not a great experience.
Yeah.
Right? So
figuring out which one's the right one. All right. This is on my to-do list. Check MK. I'm going to look at that sometime in the future.
I've used it extensively.
Like it? Oh, really?
Yeah. It's we've deployed it in production a number of times. It's cool. It does. If you're going to run Nagios, run Check MK. It comes with a bunch of tests out of the box. It's pretty easy to configure. The UI is kind of gross, but I mean, that's par for the course for all of those monitoring solutions. I'm a fan.
Cool. So he has more experience than me. So check MK. Thumbs up from Jason over here on it. Let's see. One of your recent videos, XCP-NG, we talked about a new utility to migrate from VMware. Mentioned you may do a video on the process. Any chance that's on the roadmap? Yes, absolutely. Me and Jason, now that we've got the merger done, like we had to do business things so we can afford our lifestyles. And buy servers that we can load XCP-NG on and load VMware on and do migrations. It's absolutely matter of fact, me and him are going to coordinate on a video for how to do upgrades. And Jason like has a whole, in his email, I said it looked like a Windows activation key. He's got all the VMware certs, and so do several people at CNWR. So there's a lot of VMware knowledge that I don't have that the merger has now brought and we will bring to this channel. VMware videos are in the future. And of course, that also means VMware migration videos are in the future. But the tool itself has had several updates. They now can support migrations, warm migrations, incremental migrations. They added a whole, like this has been what they said is, it removes the pain points. I talked to Oliver and his team, and it just removes the pain point for people. Go, I really want XCP-NG, but I'm all in this environment here, and
it's always supported importing like the VMDK. Well, I think you had to use QCOW. You had to use
there was conversions.
The QEMU.
They automated all the conversion
to convert it.
So you can point it and suck all the VMs out and bring them over. And they've got they've really enhanced the tooling on that. So video will be in the future for that. Newer to virtualization, how hard or straightforward is it, or even possible to copy move a 2012 VM server to a new server? There's no cluster. Like you want to go P to V, physical to virtual,
virtualized.
If it's there, I have a video on how to do P to V.
When you go to P to V it back onto the same hardware, remember you need to shrink the hard drive first, because otherwise it won't fit. Bryce, that's a call out to you if you're here watching, because had to save that day.
OpenSense has Nginx package with configurable security rules. Interesting.
Oh, so a WAF. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would tend to run mod security for that kind of stuff with Nginx.
Zabbix. I don't use it as much anymore. Matter of fact, if I'll share this tab, there's someone will point out that, hey, Tom, your dashboard's old. You're running an old version of Zabbix, and it's up to date in terms of security. But it's because we used to use it to monitor all of our PF senses. Now I just use it to monitor mine. It was like we tried it, we set stuff up, and it was novel, and now we don't.
Yeah, I prefer CheckMK over it, honestly.
Yeah, and that's why I want to look at it. I got sick of some of the updates in Zabbix kind of breaking things, and I need to rebuild it to the new version to stop that. But I don't care enough because it's just monitoring. It's monitoring my PF senses, and that's it. Let's see here. How do you set up a client to connect VM with audio? I think VNC supports it. I would use
VNC.
Yeah, don't use VNC. What's that other tool? X2Go.
Yeah,
X to go is way better.
Okay, for your RDP will work. I think some variants of VNC, real VNC or Tiger, one of the VNC variants, I think supports audio, but from a security standpoint, don't use VNC.
Yeah, and when we get around to it, once we get the debrief done, we want to talk about VNC and a security incident with a client. That's going to be a debrief video we do at some point. So VMware versus EXSI. We're going to do a more concise, not just a live stream on this. We'll do a more concise video because this obviously is cool. And I talked about this before, but it doesn't really tell the whole story. So me and Jason will talk about some of the nuanced differences between this. I think a lot of it might be because I'm bringing XCP-NG to the CNWR team. So Jason's not as familiar with it as I am, of course. And I'm learning the VMware from him. And together we want to make some videos to kind of talk about the comparative differences. We'll do that in a more recorded, organized format. But what's your initial take, though? Is everything's in a weird place?
Everything's in a weird place. So I told you this when we talked about doing this today, that some of my experience is poisoned by Zen experience on an Oracle data appliance. They've since moved to KVM for their virtualization in more modern versions of it, but the ODA on top of it is disgusting. It's a giant conglomeration of really crappy Perl scripts that configure all the Zen stuff, and it's running an old enough version of Zen that a lot of the features just aren't there. So that poisoned me on it a little bit. So I've got XCP-NG running at home for a bit now. So I am now running Proxmox and XCP-NG at the house. I have not migrated my Proxmox VMs over to XCP-NG, although I'm going to, right? That's my plan, is to build a 2-node cluster there. It works. There's some oddities about it. And as you said, some of them are just a lack of, that's just done differently there. And some of them have to do with how pooling and live migrations work. It's just, I'm used to basically being able to like pull the VM and just drag it to the new host. And it pops up with the migration screen, click next, and you're done.
Yeah. And it's all done in XCP-NG like this. I pulled something just so you can see I ran HTOP just so you can see the VMs not restarting or anything like that, but we can live migrate it over here to the other one, select a migration network. I'm going to leave that alone because I'll let it do that, but you can if you have a specific way you want to do it, but we can do that, and we'll go here. This is a 25 gig interconnect, so it migrated within, what was it, about 10 seconds?
Yeah. How much RAM does that host have?
Not much.
Yeah, that's gonna be the limiting factor, is you gotta basically snapshot memory and copy it over. 4 gigs.
Yeah, hold on,
probably not 4 gigs in use.
Let me try something here. Let's actually do this. I got to hide because it's going to show my email address. There's a way. I want to change the filter view on this. Change this, and we want to change it to defaulting to the lab. Actually, YouTube. There we go. Then we'll go. Is it just YouTube? There we go. We'll add the YouTube tag there. Now when I click home, I don't have everything on there. So
security by obscurity.
Yeah, security. I just don't feel like I don't want to click on the wrong one. This is a production system. There's like people working that will stop working if Tom screws up. But let's do this here. We'll stop the VM. Well, I could do it without stopping it, I think. Well, no, I guess see what the RAM is set to. Let's give this 32 gigs of RAM.
Now actually make it use 32 gigs of RAM. So run like some sort of benchmark or something on it.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Do I have a Pharonic system? No, that's on another server. What is that tool? Stress will do that, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So 32 gigs. Actually, how much RAM do we have on this host? So it's fine. Let's use more. How much free do we have, I should say? That's
you're fine. 32 is fine. Because we're going to be, so you're going to have to transfer 32 gigs of RAM. So, I mean, that should happen in a best case scenario. You should be able to transfer that in about 12 seconds if you math that out.
Yeah. We'll give it 40 gigs.
Yeah. 50 would be the number because it's 2 times your bandwidth, but It's fine. 40's fine. 40's plenty.
Yep, and it does have the ability to do dynamic on here, so that is actually an option. I've got a whole video about how the dynamic
so
works.
It's committed, right? So in VMware, that's a reservation, is what we call that in the VMware land.
Yep. So
you should pull that comment down.
Oh yeah, probably. So when you do the comparison, you should include Jay's Proxmox side so you get all three.
That would be that would be a good thing. I'm sure I could grab one of our guys in the office. We could even throw Hyper-V into the mix. So for what it's worth, I loathe Hyper-V.
Me too.
We've used it. We've got several client systems that are on it. Every time I use it, I swear a lot. And I'm like, they took everything from VMware and made it dumber.
Yeah. I don't see it as a long term. Like I feel like some point Microsoft is just going to drop it.
Well, so it depends on how you install it, right? So if you install it with just core, I don't consider it a Type 1 hypervisor, right? Like because it's a full Windows install underneath it, but there is a way to install it where that's not the case.
Try. I thought VM state, VM heap. Sure, if there's a M.
You want it? You want the M? Yeah.
Yeah, -M. So,
how many CPUs is that at? 2.
Yeah.
Give it like 8 if there's 2 CPUs on it.
Yeah, but M is for memory, so we got to say.
Well, you got to give it VM bytes. So you want to give it dash VM bytes and give it like 32 or gig or
YT.
Yeah.
Typing bytes wrong.
32 capital G.
32 G.
Well, that should keep that box busy.
Did I do it wrong? Does it want it like that? No. Or do I not need the M and I just put VM bytes?
No.
VM dash bytes.
Yeah, it's dash bytes. Capital G. It's just dumb. It is capital G.
Yeah. Does it work with lower? No, it doesn't work with lowercase g. Someone's probably. All right, we're back.
Oopsies.
I clicked the wrong button. All right, now the good news is this stayed in the show.
Is it Stress NG?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it need a time?
Give it like dash C2. Yeah, it does. It needs the number of CPUs. I'd give it a dash I. No, we don't want I. We don't care about.
Yeah, it works.
IO would be fun too.
Yeah.
So give it like dash I10.
Yep. Let me change this to a G. It needed a time after it.
Yeah. Is that only going to run for 10 seconds then?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it runs.
Okay.
And actually uses the memory.
We'll do it live.
We're doing it live, figuring out how this thing works.
You gotta put our back on our comments view there so we can see people.
Are you there? We are back. We hope. All right, it did a thing.
It did a thing.
Did it use memory? No. It did use CPU, but it didn't actually consume the memory. So let's figure out why it didn't. VM bytes.
Do we have to go to dash M also?
Maybe we need a dash.
Yeah, go dash M1.
All right.
Because we didn't give any workers doing memory.
So then we'll set it for a longer time and actually do the migration.
Yeah. That's a more fair test. Although I still don't see a lot of memory usage.
Yeah,
there.
we don't see the RAM usage.
Run HTOP in another tab over there. Well, run it for like a minute so we can see it.
60. So I don't know. Let's put 8. That would help. Hogs 2 CPU, 8 VMs. Fail.
Out of memory. Okay, so we can't do 8 processes, each consuming 32 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw a spike in something disk.
Yeah. Okay, so it's definitely spiking the disk.
Yeah.
A lot. So we're hammering on the drive, but we aren't seeing the memory usage.
So is this NFS or so one of the questions I had was local storage, right? There didn't seem to be a good way to do a migration that required moving the disk and the host at the same time while it was live.
Yeah, so you can if you want to move this to at the same time, you can migrate this even if we chose a completely different server that's outside the pool, for example.
Can you choose a local disk on that, or does it all have to be shared storage?
Nope. There's a local disk option right here.
Okay.
So it's on Ryzen 1, so I can choose local storage, and that'll migrate it to that local storage of that device. But of course, that'll break the ability to move it between there.
Okay. So in VMware, I can do both, right? I can tell it to move storage and host at the same time.
Yeah.
And it will do that.
Yeah. Technically, well, let's do that. Let's migrate this over to local storage because it's on Ryzen 1, so we can move to Ryzen 1 storage without an error.
Yep.
Oh, no, migrate VM. We want to migrate storage only. So if we do a storage only. So Ryzen 1, hit OK, and it should migrate. Should be reasonably fast. This is not a very big VM.
Yeah.
Just a base install of Debian.
Well, now for that thing's still consuming CPU there or disk there, then it would be, but I think I probably stopped by now.
Oh, well, let's do it while it's migrating. Just here.
Oh, set it for like 10 minutes.
Yeah. All right. So now it's got a high load, which should slow this process down, maybe.
Should.
It's suddenly got to synchronize the drive.
Well, now it's been a long 2 seconds.
Yeah. We messed up the time estimation. We froze it because the stats here say it's somewhere it's doing something. We got a lot of CPU load.
Yeah.
It's we just jumped up to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's still going. It's still chugging along.
It's chugging along, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll do that. And from
curious
there,
what the interconnect on between them looks like. Can you monitor that in there?
Not in here. It doesn't tell me the interconnect.
Okay. Yeah, so you can't monitor like the network usage of the
actually maybe
of the host.
There's a CPU usage of the host.
There's a network throughput right down there.
Yeah.
So you can't actually do it.
Oh,
internal error. We broke it.
We broke it.
We broke it already.
Yep. It failed to migrate it. It's under too high a load, so it probably said there's something going on from what we predicted to what happened. So if we stop it, it'll probably finish migration.
No, I bet you canceled it. I bet you the task is gone.
Yeah, the task is gone.
Yeah.
But it did that because it's got some error catching in there. And if it predicted something and something changed, it said, all right. So now we did break it live. But moving storage, you can move storage. And once it's on a system, if we were to migrate it over to one of these, when you do the migrate again, it'll automatically move the storage.
Okay.
Because this is on a shared storage and it knows this storage right here is shared. When I do a migrate,
just move the CPU.
Yeah, it just moves the CPU.
Okay. So there is a methodology if I have 2 standalone hosts with local storage to migrate between them while it's live. Okay.
Yeah. You also have the ability to do warm migrations. I forgot. I did a video. I haven't done a video on it, but it's a new feature they added. It's a way to coordinate all the migrations in there. They also have inside of here.
Yeah, because that's the equivalent of going, if you have DRS and going to maintenance mode on VMware, it will automatically evacuate everything off the host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have these here where you can build jobs. And when you build the jobs and the scheduling, this will actually let you do things like if you wanted to migrate based on time of day, move things, they've got a whole scheduling engine for this in here. This is something that I think you can do in VMware, but I think they made it kind of slick here because you just create a bunch of time things.
You could do some of that stuff in VMware, but only if you have like Enterprise Plus licensing, right? So a lot of the really cool, fun stuff is gated behind Enterprise Plus. It's called DRS there. And DRS actually can do cool things like minimize power. So it's like it will migrate everything to various hosts and then shut unused hosts down and then turn them back on when the load.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can actually bring hosts up and down depending on load. That's kind of cool. Oh yeah, we're hitting the memory now.
Yep. Well, this is what's interesting. When you do the memory management, it compresses it. Yeah, it does the ballooning and sends it back and forth to the minimum use. That's why we're trying to make it consume more memory for doing that.
Yeah, I presume it uses a kernel driver to do the ballooning and not just a user space process. Okay.
Yep. It's got a kernel driver for it, which is also built into Linux. And the ones they're signed because you can load the Citrix ones. So the weird relationship they still have is Citrix has the signing key and Vates does not. So Citrix drivers work perfectly fine in Windows.
Yeah.
Vates just isn't bothered because basically they don't need to. Like Citrix does it, and Citrix is well supported by us because Vates is the one developing all the TPM stuff that's going into Citrix. So they kind of have an uneasy relationship because essentially this project was spawned off of Citrix trying to turn everything into a license.
Yeah, until they pull a red hat and then it'll be contentious.
Yeah. Well, Vates is pretty clear on everything going to be open source. They've a long time open source advocate for things. But yeah, I like the backups being integrated.
Yeah, that's neat.
It's novel.
I wish for Veeam support. We can make it work with Veeam support. It's just a little grosser because we are looking. So full disclosure, we're starting to deploy, at least for our own internal like BDR devices we put out there. We're putting XCP-NG on them and managing them that way.
Yeah.
We want to back them up. So we're basically running the Veeam agent on the host. Right. And then we can use the local backups in there and then we back the backups up with the Veeam agent. So it's just a 2-step restore then. I can't directly restore it to hardware that way, which is in the case of these is actually perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they'll have Veeam support sometime in the future. I don't know if that's on the roadmap.
That's a Veeam problem. It's not
Veeam has to rate the integration. Correct. The good news is Zen's been around long enough to be documented that Veeam support's probably not a big deal. The big advantage of shared storage over live migration with local storage with shared storage and cluster, you can automatically restore VM if a host dies. You can't do that local. Yeah, I mean
HA. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have it automatically restart on there.
I mean, by all means, shared storage is the way to go. Right. Like and they've got the XO-SAN stuff is half-baked, I will call it.
Yes, that is because XO-SAN 2 is supposed to come out late this year.
It might be a third baked. It might not even be half.
They admit if you read, they even have a whole write-up on how bad the spaghetti code is.
Yeah.
Like their own admission, like this is spaghetti code.
This doesn't work the way I thought it would, and I don't think I would use it the way it actually works.
Yeah. But when they come out with XO-SAN 2 later this year, is kind of the release for that. They're going to have a new version of Zen. They're going to dark mode. There's the most exciting feature because that white is just blinding. But the XO-SAN V2 is going to be substantially better. Yeah. And they're also rewriting the XO API. So the underlying storage management is being rewritten too.
Yeah, you should hit that next question because we can talk about that too, right? Because this is not unique to either one of them. So generally, I use a dedicated network, at least a VLAN. It's not necessarily dedicated physical infrastructure, but all of my iSCSI traffic lives on its own VLAN.
Yep.
And typically on the host has its own network adapters associated with it. If it's 10 gig, that may not be the case. But I generally try to keep storage traffic on its own because you're 100% right that you end up with all the storage traffic leaving the host. You build a storage network. That's what storage networks are for, and it's fine. It works fine. Yeah. Or do fiber channel. You could definitely do fiber channel. I mean, it's still a thing, and you can pick up cheap fiber channel stuff because no one wants to do it anymore. So you could definitely just use fiber channel too, and then it's not hitting the network. I mean, still kind of is, but
yeah. And if you notice, the network here is 192.168.20.225. We have a dedicated storage network at the office as well. It's its own dedicated separate thing because not mixing those. This question has come up a few times because someone asked you why I don't define them in pfSense. I'm like, why would I? I do not want any chance of my storage network routing to the outside world.
I do not route the storage network at all.
That's just not.
It has no default gateway. Yeah, it has no routing device on it,
and there's no DHCP on it because I statically set everything.
A lot of my networks don't have DHCP, right? Like management networks tend to not have it. If I don't want random hosts appearing on a network, I'm not going to run DHCP.
Yeah, it just solves a lot of the problems. Because we go to the production VMs, they're also split here because if you look at the networks, this is why the XO itself, one leg, this is where it talks to all the VMs and moves them around. The 20 network is where it bounces them around for the actual storage. This is how the backups are so fast. It's completely separate storage. Just makes it makes life a lot better, less risky.
Yes.
To see implement features like Surbeam, Instant,
Yeah, we do Sure Backup most places. Instant virtual machines, I think we have that some places. We do all sorts of application aware stuff. That stuff's not that hard to do. It's a little harder. We're doing Oracle backups there too, right? And so it's a little harder because you have to integrate with RMAN to get good Oracle backups and Quiesce and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But yeah, those if you're using Veeam, you should be using all those features.
Yeah, that's part of the beauty of Veeam. You know, we're still using from that we brought over the MSP 360 because people ask what we're settling on. And honestly, you know, we're trying, the goal is eventually get to one backup, but it's not hard. The MSP 360 works. We in my choice for backups is we hated that one the least when we went through them. It wasn't that I loved it. I just I tested a Cronus. Did it work? Yes. Is the dashboard horrible? Yes. It's really, really bad. And it's like they turned into an upsell machine.
Yeah, no, they did. I hate that. You want to use us for cybersecurity? No. Like if you're the best in backup, then go do something else, right? But like when you're middle of the pack in backup, like what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
In Comet backup, I don't know if they ever fixed this, but we looked at it, and one of the problems, Comet's really cool. I was really close to pulling the trigger, except they have a way, they don't have a way of getting the new clients onboarded without everyone sharing a key. And I'm like, this is a problem. Like, this is a security issue. And because of that, it kind of ruled them out. And it's like, yeah, we've had people mention that before. And I'm like, well, you should probably fix it.
Yeah. It probably has to do with signatures and stuff like that. It's probably not easy to do. They have to use subordinate keys and whatever. What you have to think about is if someone were to pop one of your clients and everybody had to share a key, they're like, I didn't get a key to this client. I got a key to your clients. So this was actually a problem back when I had my CVE and ConnectWise, is that there was a LabTech deployment key that was common and you could get it off any of the hosts, and it basically let you register it lets you register your host with LabTech. So they changed it so that is no longer given out willy-nilly. I mean, we'll probably move your clients to Veeam eventually. On the grand scheme of former clients, on the grand scheme of processes and tools that we're going to integrate, it's pretty low on the list because what you have is working. It's mostly doesn't require a lot of work to care and feed.
Nope. There's very few tickets because it really is. I mean, we monitor it, but it's kind of a set it and forget it because the agents work fine. They just work. The setup's not difficult. It's easy to navigate. The dashboard's easy to look at. And so sometimes those are like, it works. We've done restores. We've restored things for clients and it works. We do have one co-managed running Ninja backups, I think still. But Ninja backups have, so since that, what's his name's in charge of it, it's gone through some major refactoring.
I feel bad. They're going to watch this video and they're going to see that I went, oh, when you said it.
Oh, I did too. I'm the one that, look, I was just honest with them. I said, I can't use this product. And I'm on like their advisory and go to their council stuff and things like that. And I told them, and they took not just my feedback, but others that had experiences, and they've really put some work into it. So it's worth revisiting. But yeah, that's a different topic altogether. Also, if you want us to, I want to do a tools video because there's so many more tools to talk about now.
Yeah, I think we have like 36 different things users can log into.
Yeah. There's just a lot. And I think we want to give you some insight into the back end of running the MSP. And there's so much, like, I thank all of you for the kind words of saying Tom had a mature operation, but there wasn't everything being done that could have been done. And so expanding further has been really interesting and insightful from like, hey, look at all the things we do now. I joked with Sean. I was like, I'm finally a ConnectWise customer.
I'm finally a Ninja customer.
And he's finally a Ninja customer because we like Ninja for the RMM, but we manage works. They've done a lot with the manage, the way you put Nilier on top of it.
I think you guys actually are starting to like manage.
They do. So at least, the employees like it. I don't hate it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
Well, you don't have to do a lot of it because I've exempted you from timesheets and all the other things that are,
How easy is it to pass through a PCIe device, an XCP-NG, next GPU, HPA? It's not hard. Their write-up is pretty clear, where you LSPCI from DOM0, you find it, you pop it into a list and exclude it so DOM0 has no access to it, and you figure out which VM you want to. They do not have, because this request comes up from home users, it is not a priority for them right now to do tooling in XCP-NG to allow device pass-through. But if you like it better, Unraid does a better job of this for home users, and so does TrueNAS is actually getting pretty good at it, because a lot of people want their TrueNAS scale system and the Kubernetes thing they built, Kubernetes Docker coordination. They actually have pull downs now, so your cards can be passed right through.
Yeah, I think Proxmox does it too.
I think they have a I think Proxmox 8 has a UI for it. That's one of those little questions.
VMware does.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think when you're choosing it just as a home user, like you don't care about the scalability and cool things I talk about in XCP-NG, it may be that Proxmox is a better fit for you because you're like, I don't want to do that command line thing, Tom. I want to pull down. And,
and that some of the, as we go through this, right, some of that stuff is that there's a lot of things that you still have to go back to the command line in. Once you get out of like the common use path, you're back to CLI land. For a lot of the XCP-NG stuff.
Yeah.
But
your Raspberry Pi isn't powerful enough. So my suggestion, I did a review of the Zima board. The Zima board is way faster than the Raspberry Pi. It's really cool.
Orange Pi, I think, is another one, right? Or Orange something.
So the problem with those, Jeff Deerling did a good video on this.
Yeah.
The problem is support sucks on some of them.
Yeah, it does. It does. You just have to accept that. Like, if you buy it off of Alibaba, the support's probably not going to be great.
But I just did a review.
There's a couple of Turing. Turing's one that's stalking me right now, but I think those are only compute modules. I don't think they're full.
Jay's got a giant Turing Pi set up.
That's probably why it's stalking me, because I watch the videos.
Yep. So the Zima board is pretty cool. I did a video on this. It's 179 with 8 gigs of RAM, and it's x86.
Okay. There was a Rock was another one.
Yeah, the Rock x86. There's a couple companies that make these. Matter of fact, in the box over there, I just did a review. Those I can't pick it up to carry, so you're gonna take that back to the office.
What, this?
Nope.
The little one.
Yeah, the little ones. Yeah. Those are those little mini PCs. Those are really awesome. I did a review of both of those.
I mean, so that's what we're deploying now for BDRs.
Yeah,
are those little 1 liter PCs?
Yep.
Or not 1 liter. They're the bigger ones. The 2.5. The one with like 4 or 6 2.5 gigs in them.
But either way, the Zima board's like a good choice for running it. It's got USB 3. It's got a PCIe connector on there. If you don't need 8 gigs they start at like 119 for the less than 8 gig model. So Zima boards are kind of a good alternative to the Pi.
Libra is another one that I've seen.
Yeah, there's a handful of those mini PCs.
Odroid, that's the one I was thinking. Odroid has so many models that have like basically every configuration you could want.
And Patrick from Serve the Home, he's got so many good reviews of some of those boxes. Patrick just dives deep into it. He's awesome at it. We'll answer a few more. Eventually, we got do other work. Proxmox needs better UI for SRIOV.
Yep.
Yeah, probably. I don't know how many home users need it, but
we can talk about that someday. The unnecessary complexity I see in some of these home labs.
Yeah. Someone that really insists they need a Ceph cluster to run their Plex system.
Yeah. And then when it goes down, they put in a consulting request to get it fixed. I'm like, why were you doing that?
Yeah. Do we use Teleport to manage an MSP? Not right now. Teleport's pretty cool.
I don't know what that is, so I haven't looked at it.
You've actually what is that called?
Jumper. I saw it.
There you go.
Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah. I see. You've seen this before. Teleport's pretty neat. Christian Lempa, he's my friend from Germany. He's done several good videos on this. What they did was they copied SSH. It's based on SSH, wrapped around their teleport tool. It's all open source. It's really slick how they built it.
It's probably just SSH with wrappers.
Yeah, and they're very open about how they do it. It's essentially SSH with wrappers, but from a control standpoint, the thing I don't like about it's an agent, and I don't want to have to run more agents.
Yeah,
that's what stops me from using this. And there's a couple competing tools for it. I just don't want to load any extra that I don't have
Yeah,
to.
we've been talking about that even with regards to the XCP-NG stuff, because what makes the most sense for us to do is to run a centralized Zen Orchestra box to manage all of these.
Yep.
But I am very afraid of that attack surface. So we have not done that to date. Yeah, we might. We'll end up tunneling it in, only allowing it from the IPs, access to it from the IPs externally that need access to using some sort of SSH tunneling or tail scale or some sort of other methodology to get the traffic back, and then very much limiting access to that from internal networks, from trusted hosts and that. So you'll have to go through a jump box to get to it. It's
kind of a complicated thing. It's limiting a threat surface is the really big piece that you want to make sure. Yeah. And of course, back to being agent based, I don't want to load extra agents, especially on my XCP-NG DOM 0, because now I may have a conflict that causes and breaks something else. So I'm troubleshooting a problem I created. And that's kind of
there are other ways to solve that. You could just do an SSH with port forwarding. There's a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah. SSH VPNs are still my favorite combination. Just VPN in, SSH in, keep it restricted to certain IPs. All right, we've got a few more questions and we'll wind it down here for coming up on the hour. Home users and I need it really to post some rack and lab info in the forums or something. Yeah.
I mean, so over the years, my home lab has gone from a ton of hardware down to, I think I've got 3 2U servers running, maybe 2 2U and 1 1U that run in the rack, and I could get it all down to 1. At some point I tinker, but I need stuff to just work too, right? So it's like I try to avoid, I have lab environments that become complex, but like I'm not running production stuff on them.
No. The team, and this is actually cool. I'll pull up their YouTube real quick. I didn't watch the video yet. But it's 45 drives.
That's what I want to do. I want to get that VAX going at some point.
So the good news is these are let me find it. Well, I'll just leave the title up. But you can find this video. They had a challenge posted to them in the Ceph forums. And it says, can we achieve 10,000 IOPS using Ceph and SATA SSDs? So but they built this out and walk you through all the steps they do. This is a long video.
How many boxes is that? Just one box?
Yeah, probably. But what I like is they walk you through how they step through the process, how you build it. They're really good on Ceph.
So what kills you there in the end is the native command queuing depth of SATA is only 2.
Right.
So you don't get any write combining. And that makes it, I guess for IOPS, that's fine. Were they able to get 10K IOPS to the disks, or was it hitting the memory buffer?
That's I didn't watch the video, so it's on my to-do list. Yeah, okay. They just posted
this too now.
Yeah, they and by the way, I need to invite you next time we do a roundtable with them. I'll bring you on there. They love hearing ideas and stuff throughout them. I won't say, but when Wendell was on there, Wendell has a clever idea that they're going to build at the lab. It's going to be part of the Creator Summit that I can't make it to because I canceled my travel plans there. But there's some cool videos that are going to come out of there. I'm going to fly out separate to go hang out with the people who are at 45 Drives and go to their building. And maybe when I go, you want to go too. We're going to give a whole tour of the facility where they build these things. So
with a rack of 3D printers, because a bunch of the parts seem to be 3D printed, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and they're just neat people. They're really strong engineers there. But they build some of these ideas out, but they also talk about the complexities of them. And one of the other problems is if you want a good Ceph cluster, it's not just Ceph. You usually go, hey, I'd like to have several systems clustered together. The interconnection between those becomes the limitation of your speed. Synology actually has a really cool HA system where you can take 2 systems and create. And I have a Synology at the office that I'm going to be doing this on. Again, because they sent it to me, but it's got dual controllers in there. But the interconnected controllers becomes the limitation for your IOPS when you put it in that mode.
That's why things like InfiniBand exist, right? Because they're very low latency, very high speed, basically just PCIe interconnects between 2 systems.
Yeah, so that's where like people think they want it, but then when you start realizing all the components to make the cluster work, you'll know why we deploy way more ZFS than clusters in Ceph. I mean, it's just...
Eventually our Veeam target storage will probably move to Ceph, honestly, because I have so many. I'm up to like 3 or 4 relatively largest TrueNAS core boxes now, right? At some point or another, it makes sense to combine them all into one Ceph cluster and just expose a giant NFS volume.
And the jury's still out. After the more time I spend with the 45 Drives team, they used to do cluster, and they said, look, I said cluster was cool, but we had almost lost clients over this, and because it couldn't scale to the performance. And I think they told me they have over 20 petabytes of data with a client.
It's more like object storage to me, right? It's like if you're storing, it seems to fall apart, because we looked at using it for a bigger enterprisey client of ours where we have a job batching system that lives in there's 4 copies of it running, right? So basically we do blue-green deployment. So we've got the active one, the passive dev one, and then there's a secondary site. So there's 4 copies of it. We ended up just doing a centralized NFS server because Gluster fell apart with the 200,000 files that live in that one directory, right? It could not handle a high number of inodes in one spot.
And that's exactly what their experience was. Ceph handles this differently because they have drives. They have storage spaces that are dedicated to managing that. So you can manage it to say, all right, this is the extra caching. They said they would have with the client that they switched off of Gluster. I think they said they would just to open up some directories was a 1 to 2 minute pause.
Oh yeah. No, it took. So that's what killed it. We set up this Gluster stuff, and then I did LS, and it took literally 2.5 minutes to get an LS response. I'm like, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, it's just it's not practical.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're at, Jason. I think you're in Canada though. So morning. You said we should chat. You connected with you on LinkedIn, so say hi sometime. If you want to talk about videos and stuff. He's actually done, I think he's got a few Proxmox videos that he did. Another YouTuber. Let's see. 2 Synology Docker hosts. I still have HA firewalls, multiple switches, MTSP for G backup though.
Interesting. Yeah. MSTP versus PB RTSP, right? I mostly have moved away from MST because of the unless MSTP isn't what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
To me, it's multi-spanning tree protocol.
Is it multi-spanning tree protocol? We're guessing. We have a lot of acronym collision that we're running into.
Because I think that's just called MST in most vendors' worlds.
Yes.
Where you can run up to 16 spanning tree instances, and then you just map VLANs to them.
So you're saying the thought of cluster storage has lost its luster? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think for certain workloads, if you have a lot of large files for a video editing workflow, it might actually work fine because you're dealing with few large files. It seems to be a problem with metadata, essentially, and how long it takes to do the metadata lookups and collisions. And I think Ceph is a little bit different because it's more like block storage than it is like individual. It's just different the way it's architected, so it's less of a problem.
Yeah, the in the way TrueNAS is doing it, people aren't going to I've talked about this because the number of people ask me about it, but then they realize how they implemented it. So TrueNAS scale, and we'll pull up their site because I'll show you how the wording is. I like TrueNAS scale. It's not a dig at scale, but it's an implementation dig. So they're building this whole scale out structure, which is cool. And they talk about it, but Docker, VM, blah, blah, blah. The way they do this is the only way to make this work is through you have to license their cloud controller. There's no interface for Gluster in TrueNAS scale. So this is where we're going to split hairs about open source. TrueNAS scale, the open source server, still is built on open source. And Gluster's open source. They're just not going to give you a management interface for it. You have to buy their closed source.
Okay. So that's how they're getting around the fact that it's open source. We're just going to cloud manage this, and then it's not bound by any of these licenses. Interesting.
Yeah. So you go through and you buy a license for the coordination server, and then you can host it yourself. They'll host it for you. You can host it yourself. You can host it on a TrueNAS scale system. It's just a VM that spins up that connects through APIs that will talk to this, and it's kind of cool. It gives you more than just what is it called? True Command. They have a whole Core Enterprise, True Command. So the True Command system is what manages all this, and it connects all of them. It gives you a cool dashboard. You can connect all your TrueNAS systems to it. It's got a lot of features.
We have a request from somebody that we're currently trying to fulfill right now that wants to not run multiple. Will this talk to core or only scale?
No, both.
Okay, well, that might be a solution to the thing we were just talking about.
Oh yeah, and this is what, well, if he wants to use that, this is what he has to run,
as opposed to using gluster.
Yes. Well, no, this coordinates the gluster.
Oh, okay.
So it's still gluster on the back end, but this is the web UI for it.
Okay. Will it do just, if you don't want to do gluster, will it do centralized management of just the TrueNAS? I mean, that may be all he's after, honestly.
Yeah. So it's cool. I actually demoed it when it was in the beta, and I didn't like it enough at the time. And I was very honest with them, and there's a reason there's not a video. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm not going to do a video because you won't like it. So I told them, and I'm good friends with the people at IX Systems. We're a reseller. I said, when it gets more polished, it's actually a lot more polished. Last time I looked at it, it looks good. They did a nice job. The way you like, it's pretty now. It's not like this. It
looks like TrueNAS.
Yeah, it looks like TrueNAS. They found a common theme. They've put a lot of thing there. They're very open about the pricing on it, the subscription pricing, and it all is subscription. But this is what I know the Homelab people are going. But Tom, I thought we were going to get gluster with TrueNAS scale. I'm like, you are. As long as you buy the license for this, it's not expensive.
You already could have gluster with TrueNAS scale, like you just don't get a UI around it.
Yeah, you just have to run it off from the command line. So that's the one thing is a little bit, and the only place that even has any UI for Ceph is the team at 45 Drives. They built some that are pretty cool. Their Ceph deploy. They have a video on. I think they call it like Ceph deploy, which is they built it on top of Cockpit. It's pretty cool. I like where they're going with it.
I think there are other Ceph UI front ends too that do exist.
Oh, okay. I'm not besides them. I haven't seen many people doing it. No. It's not almost anyone who does Ceph. Like it's, used all the time. It's a really popular system.
It came from the OpenStack world. So because of that, there's OpenStack stuff that supports it.
It's going to be your DevOps engineers, fingers on keyboard, punching away at it. And those people don't want a web UI that would slow them down and remove the automation. So
most of those things are not intended to be, they're intended to be configured with automation, not with humans. Right. So that's why there's no UIs for them.
Exactly. All right. Well, it's been an hour. Thank you all for joining us. This was fun. As I said in the beginning, Lawrence.video/biz. If you want, we've been doing a lot of talk about the merger, all the behind the scenes on that for those that are curious. We will be covering some of the VMware stuff though, more in depth. I'm excited to argue with Jason about VMware. I'm probably wrong about a few things. I've used VMware. I'm not completely blind to it, but he knows it way better than me. But we want to do more XCP-NG as well. So fun stuff. And we want to do that VMware upgrade video. I think that one
I put that in our list of ideas. That one we should start getting done quick. So I'll get the groundwork laid for it. I'll build a couple of VMs. We're going to do it in VMs first. And then if they want to tinker on hardware later, they can. But Matt's like, I want to do it on hardware. I'm like, no, you don't, because it's like an hour to reset it between every time they play.
Yeah. Getting with it. And that's when I build my scripts for my videos. Like I always tell people, if people watch me work, you would know I'm not as good as I look on video. I'm editing out all the bad. Seriously, there's like 10 times Tom went through this. Tom typoed it. Do you think I leave the typos in?
I do.
Yeah.
When I do them. Yeah. Because I hate editing.
Yeah. Editing's hard. Matter of fact, editing though is how you learn how to shoot better. Yeah. And because once you've made a lot of mistakes, you try really hard not to make them. I'll just re-record things rather than edit out the mistakes. Yeah. I recorded the video that's uploaded right now that'll get published tonight. I recorded it twice because I realized how many mistakes I made, and I'm like, I ain't editing that. It's actually easier for me to it's only a 5-minute video, so it's easier for me to say this again in 5 minutes and spend 20 minutes editing out the things I said wrong. All right, man. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.